Hi, hello, and welcome, or welcome back, I suppose. Technically, we're still in 2022, or at least I am, but after this, the filming will actually be in 2023. Well, I'm filming an intro for something right after this, but the actual reviews will be post-New Year. Speaking of New Year, I figured this is a fitting book to do a voiceover for, where I practice the makeup I'll actually be doing for a New Year party. And given that I am actually doing this voiceover after finishing the makeup, it didn't quite go how I planned, but I have an idea for what I'm gonna do tomorrow. I was gonna do it for this video, but I was struggling with it. I didn't want to take too much time on it, and I thought, yeah, I'll try and freehand a star. Didn't go well. So tomorrow I'm gonna try and make a stencil because I have some sticker paper. So I'm gonna just stick it on my face and see what happens. But anyway, let's get right on into it, shall we? Hi, I'm just popping in here. I don't know if this is going to go in the this time next year video or the intro. Well, the video that I filmed an intro for recently, but I don't want to name that, just in case it is going in the this time next year video. But anyway, this is actually how it turned out. It is all blue and green themed, as you can tell. I couldn't find the top I was actually looking for, but I remembered that I have this. I'm also wearing this on the bottom, obviously not now, and I have starry tights on. Do I have space? No, I have a small room, but I have starry tights on, and that's fun. And I'm going to be wearing big giant boots, but I wanted to show how it actually looks compared to how it ended up looking in the video, because it went badly wrong. I was originally going to do one like this, like faced out on the outside, and one in, and it almost worked, but I cocked it up in a couple different ways, and this ended up working much nicer. And I ended up doing what I said I was going to do, which is make some look. I had sticker paper, so I just traced off my PC. I just, put it on the screen, traced it, cut out this, stuck it on there, went around it, and then I buffed it out, put some liner on, and it looks really well. Oh, and I kind of blocked my brows. I've never done that before, so I'm really pleased with how it worked. So yeah, this is actually the look. So today we'll be talking about This Time Next Year by Sophie Cousens. This book follows Minnie and Quinn, two people born moments apart on New Year's Day in 1990. While their lives have been rather different, they're brought together, and over the course of 1 year we see how their lives unfold. Now, this is following them the year after their 30th birthday. Their 30th birthday obviously being on New Year's Day. So, it's worth pointing out right out of the gate that this is set in 2020, but was written in 2019. So, the 2020 presented to us is obviously not the one we had. And yes, sometimes it's jarring, but that isn't the fault of Sophie Cousens. There's nothing she could do about that, but I do feel like it's worth pointing out just so you know that going in. Now, conceptually, this works really well. For a start, it's just little things and moments that link them during flashbacks. It doesn't feel forced as it so easily could have been. All the little things that connect them are obvious, but you never feel like you're being guided too much. A lot of pop fiction authors feel like they're holding your hand too much, but that's not the case here. It's easy reading. It's easy reading, but it's never, I guess it's never patronizing. Like, there's moments where they're in the same place at the same time, but they're not interacting, and it's obvious. They never have to say, this is the place where the other one was. You're just left to your own devices with that because it's obvious enough. And there's a moment which is, I have an issue with the forum part, but that's just a formatting error. It needs to be separated, what's the actual messages versus what's well, not when she's just saying, oh, and this person said this, because it's laid out like it's just going to be the messages in the way that a lot of people do with texts. But it didn't ruin the book for me. I just thought it was a little thing that played in my mind a little bit. But anyway, during that moment, you're sitting there and going, oh, that's probably Minnie. Same with, there's a girl that he meets at a New Year party at a different time. This isn't when they meet, like when they were much younger, I think like 15 or 16 or something like that. And it's a moment where you go, oh, that's probably her. And it's just little things later on where you have that confirmed to you, and it's barring right at the end, there's one explicit kind of, oh yes, this is what happened. But at no point are you ever being like banged over the head with the fact that, look, they've known each other and bumped into each other for a lot longer than they think they have. And I'm incredibly grateful for that, because like I said, pop fiction goes one of two ways. You can, because, you know, if you're trying to write for a general audience, then you want to make sure as many people can understand what you're writing as possible. But at the end of the day, this is simple writing. That's not offensive. This, you know, I'm not expecting some kind of groundbreaking, trying to figure out some kind of scientific breakthrough from this. I'm looking for a rom-com, and that's what I get, but I'm not being patronised for wanting something simple. And also structurally, it just works really well. We don't stick on any given point in time too long. When a moment reaches its conclusion, we move on. She's not afraid to move forward days, weeks, months in the future, and you get as much info about that time as you need. Cousens is rather pragmatic about time, and I love how she uses it. I've noticed it a lot. Again, I've noticed it in pop fiction where people like to overfill the space. You're given too much information, and it's not visible here. I don't think that this has any fanfiction fingerprints on it, or if it does, it's written remarkably well. But a lot of the books you'll notice on Book Talk that either were fanfiction or are by somebody who's spent a bit too much time in the fanfiction world. There's nothing wrong with fanfiction, but it has its fingerprints on it, and a lot of it's dog shit, right? The thing with fanfiction is it's a case of throwing enough shit at the wall and seeing what'll stick. And in a lot of those cases, you're often given too much information because... and I get it as well, because you've got to bear in mind, say somebody's uploading a chapter a week. They want to make sure you're getting bang for your buck, but the thing is, by the time you're editing that into a book, you can edit some of that shit out. It doesn't need to be word for word what you printed online, right? But in this case, what I'm saying is, this doesn't have those kind of fingerprints on it. It doesn't have fanfiction fingerprints on it anyway, but even romance authors who don't have any fanfiction-esque fingerprints on them, they still have that same thing. If they're trying to give you too much information, they want to linger on things a bit too long. But like I say, Cousens is really pragmatic about this shit, and I love that. She knows just how long to spend on each moment. Now, I do need to move on to some complaints, because I wouldn't say I'm 50-50 about Minnie and Quinn's relationship. I'm not kind of going, oh, half the time I liked it, half the time I didn't. I enjoyed how it formed and developed, much more than I have issues with it. But, well, there are some issues. And part of it, I think my biggest actual issue is that the relationship really brushes up against love can fix him narrative. And yes, it does mostly avoid it, but for my liking, it gets rather too close. It's a narrative I've seen too many times, and it's something that is just best avoided rather than carefully approaching. Look, I understand in romance we're going to have our characters with some tragedy to them, and that's not unusual. You can't have everything be light and airy and happy and fluffy and wee, because you want some conflict here. But while he does say the reason he's doing better is because he's been in therapy, it still feels a little bit like there's mentions of him doing the therapy isn't mentioned all that much. It feels like a last minute, oh, but I can't actually say that she's the one that's victim, so we have to throw in some, no, but he's in therapy as well. So, you know, I wasn't a huge fan of that aspect. It didn't completely ruin my enjoyment of the book, but it was a presence that I was aware of. But the hot and cold with them generally worked out really nicely. I think it would depend on your patience levels as to how much you can get along with this. I personally like a slow burn like this book, where you can see there's clearly something between them. They just have to figure out how they're going to make it work, or in other cases they have to see that they are into each other. In this case, there's a kind of, they kind of have to admit that they have feelings kind of thing, especially on Minnie's end. But for the most part, they're aware that there's feelings there, and maybe there's a bit of admitting that to themselves. But the biggest hot and cold here is it's a will they won't they kind of thing, right? And, you know, there's a great ebb and flow of tension, but I do think for some people there would be a running out of patience when it comes to just going, are you going to be friends? Or are you going to be in a relationship? Will you make your mind up, please? Because even me, and I enjoyed this, even once or twice I was going, there's a slight level of repetition here. If it went on much longer, I don't think I would have enjoyed this book, because it by the time of the end, we were reaching the point where it couldn't have gone on much longer, which I suppose is the right point to end it. And this has been a great, easy read for me. I'm in that week, like, while I've been reading it, I've been in that week between Christmas and New Year, so, you know, I'm at that point where all the seasonal stress is still hanging on, and a fun little rom-com like this is perfect. I'll certainly be on the lookout for Sophie Cousens' work in the future if it's anything like this. Now, I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, a wonderful whenever you are watching this. Take care of yourselves. Right.